Bats finally come to life as the Phillies salvage Game 3 of the series against the Giants after a really lousy couple of games to start the series. I'm Coy Camiscioli, Philly Sports Talk here, going to break it down for you. And again, the Phillies kind of redeemed themselves tonight with a 13-0 win over the Giants, racking up 17 hits. So I'll break down each game. We'll start with the most recent, the 13-0 win. That's obviously the big one here. And what stood out to me right away is Bryce Harper's performance, because I was getting ready on this podcast before this game to talk about Bryce Harper. I know I mentioned him in the last podcast after the Red series, talking about how it just has not been as good recently this year. And I know he's been dealing with injuries and stuff. He's hovering around the 250 mark and average and around the 750 mark in OPS, and just hasn't been the same Bryce Harper. Now, again, he's been dealing with injuries. But, we want to see that vintage Bryce Harper back. And he was here today. He knew I was going to go on the air and talk about him. So he went out and performed 4 for 6 with 4 extra base hits for the first time in his career, 3 doubles, and a home run. Unbelievable performance from Bryce Harper. Again, hopefully he's back after this one, starting to swing the bat well. I think his OPS jumped to 819 after this game, which is unbelievable. A big-time game for Bryce. He really needed this. He needed to see some knocks fall, and let alone at little singles, now doubles and home runs. So, again, big-time game for Bryce Harper. This is good to see, because that was what I was going to talk about a lot on this podcast was, his swing and how we need to get him going. And, again, I talked about it last podcast. So, big time that he could get going in the series finale. Hopefully it'll carry over. But, yeah. Kyle Schwarber, too, he went yard again. He hit a 3-run shot. He just continues to rake. He went 1 for 5 in the game, but just hitting homer after homer after homer. It has been a great season for Kyle Schwarber, and I know in the Red Series podcast I talked about how I'm going to find a way to extend him, and hopefully they do. Actually, no, sorry, I did not talk about that. That was in my notes after Game 2 because Schwarber hit a home run. So that was still kind of, that's still kind of fresh in my head. Because it's back-to-back nights with the Kyle Schwarber home run. He just can't stop raking, man. It's unbelievable. Showing no signs of slowing down. The Phillies need to find a way to try and extend him, but they really need to try to find a bullpen arm and another bat. But I'll get to that in a second. I'll finish off with my notes from Game 3 of this series. Another big thing, too, that needs to get talked about, even though it might get a little overlooked with 13 runs for the Phillies. Jesus Luzardo absolutely threw a gem today. 7 innings, 0 runs, just 3 hits, 7 strikeouts. Big time performance to get back on track after a pretty bad start before this, getting hammered by the Reds on July 4th. So this was a big one for him. Looked really good. Again, if we can just get him a little more consistent, and he's just the 4th starter now for the Phillies. So you already have Ranger, Wheeler, and Sanchez. So he throws you one of these every now and then, you're in a really good spot, especially come postseason. Big game from Jesus Luzardo. He's one of my standouts from this series just because of that performance. And the Phillies pitching as a whole just limited the Giants to 4 hits in this game. Only a couple extra or 2 innings for the bullpen, but great job by the Phillies pitching staff. Honestly, all series, despite the sell yesterday, which again I'll talk about in a few. But none of those 4 hits were extra base hits, so great job again by pitching. And just a great way to bounce back, seriously. But I'll talk about Game 2 and then a little bit about Game 1. Game 2, probably one of the most aggravating ways to lose. Off an inside the park home run from a catcher, Patrick Bailey, which hasn't been done, I think, since 1929 I saw or something. The pitch was crushed. Just took a weird bounce off the brick wall, and Brandon Marsh, not the greatest route of all time, but that's also something that's tough to predict. Well, I shouldn't say route, but positioning from when the ball was going to bounce off the wall. But again, that's just a weird one. And when you're just serving up cookies, Jordan Romano, it's going to happen, seriously. Double, single, inside the park home run, and just like that, Jordan Romano only gets 1 out and gets a blown save from it. And it just, honestly, it's kind of pathetic. It's a shame that this signing has not worked out for the Phillies because it was very low risk. You kind of thought after May, he had a pretty good ERA in May. I think it was in the 2s, that maybe this signing is going to be working out, but it's not. His ERA, according to Baseball Reference right now, is 7.44, just ugly. And it's kind of a shame that this is one of Rob Thompson's only options as of now in that bullpen at this time. I know the unfortunate season-ending result to Jose Alvarado, well, not season ending because he can pitch in the regular season, but not in the postseason, which kind of just a kick in the you know what. So it's kind of unacceptable. And you can't even necessarily blame Rob Thompson for bringing him in. It's more just the product that's being put into that bullpen. It has just been a problem for years upon years. And Jordan Romano just should not be the answer in a 3-1 game against a very good NL West opponent. But, you're also trying to get him back on track. Hopefully, he can go throw a good quick shutdown inning, but that was just not the case. And there really needs to be some work done on this bullpen, as there always has needed to be done. But I don't know. He just hasn't done in years past. Why is it going to happen now? So, but some of the positives, though, Taijuan Walker, he got the start in this game and was pretty solid. He threw 4 innings, getting up a run off of 2 hits. And after that, again, the bullpen was good up until Romano. The pitching as a whole was good this series. So, not an awful game. The Phillies, they went 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Obviously, they were held to just 3 runs, but just a very, very tough way to lose because the Phillies very easily should have taken 2 out of 3 if we could have just shut them down in the bullpen last night. But again, Kyle Schwarber, he had another home run. He needs to get extended, as I said, and another 0 for 4 hitless night for Harper, which is word for word in my notes. Because again, I was going to be talking about Bryce a lot in this podcast, but he kind of just made me be able to wipe off that whole segment after 4 extra base hits in one game. So weird game. Game 1 was kind of also frustrating, but not as frustrating. The bats are just held in check. 3-1 loss. But Christopher Sanchez, he dealt, and he showed why he should be in the All-Star game. By the way, he leads every statistical category over Freddie Peralta, by the way. Peralta's an All-Star. Just that's the main graphic I've seen recently. But Sanchez, 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, lowered his ERA to 2.59 in the year. Great start for him. Fortunately, Kirk Rain, he gave up a couple runs late in the game that sold the 1-1 tie. But regardless, offense teams put up more runs. Phillies go 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position in this game after going 0 for 10 in the series finale against the Reds in the game prior. And just, it just kind of carried over from that series. But after a great series finale in this one against the Giants, looks like hopefully we don't have to be worried about that anymore. And the Phillies are moving past the era of not hitting with runners in scoring position. And I hopefully this set the tone. Seriously, 13-0 win, that's big time. But Phils, they'll close out their first half with a 3-game set against the Padres. They are off tomorrow. They do have their 3 best lineup to pitch, with Ranger Suarez scheduled to pitch Game 1 on Friday. Zach Wheeler scheduled to go toe-to-toe against Yu Darvish on Saturday. And on Sunday, Christopher Sanchez to close out the series for the Fightins. The Padres, when I checked their probable starters, only Yu Darvish is listed right now for the Saturday game. Everything else is still up for grabs. But again, great way to bounce back after a really poor couple of games. If we can go win the series in San Diego and go just 500 on this West Coast trip against very good NL West opponents into the All-Star break and going in on a series win, that'll be big time coming out of the All-Star break. But that'll do it for me. I'll have a podcast out after the Padres series either Sunday or Monday, and enjoy the final series before the All-Star break. Just, we're starting to look at playoff positions here. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in.